Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Members of Parliament, and members of the public joining us virtually. Mula Binaka, a very good morning to you all. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I begin my contribution to this important debate, I first wish to acknowledge and give thanks to Almighty God for His abundant grace, wisdom, and guidance upon our beloved nation and upon the People's Coalition Government, since we are entrusted with the responsibility of leading this nation from the 24th of December 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, when this government came into office, we inherited a nation that was emerging from years of challenges. Challenges that affected public confidence, strained institutions, and placed pressure on many ordinary Fijian families. We knew from the outset that the responsibility entrusted to us was not an easy one. It required courage, it required humility, and commitment to put the interests of the people first. Over the past 3.5 years, this government has faced significant challenges: global economic uncertainty, rising cost of living, natural disasters, the impact of previous policy decisions, and the ongoing task of rebuilding trust between citizens and public institutions. Yet, through every challenge, God has remained faithful. His grace has sustained us. His wisdom has guided us. His blessings have enabled this government to continue serving the people of Fiji with humility, purpose, and determinations. Proverbs 3:5-6 remind us, Mr. Speaker, sir, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. These words remind us that leadership is not only about making decisions. It is about seeking wisdom, acting with humility, and recognizing that our responsibility is ultimately serving people something greater than ourselves, the people we represent and the nation we have been entrusted to lead. Mr. Speaker, sir, government has remained focused on delivering commitments we made to the people of Fiji. We promised to restore confidence in our democratic institutions. We strengthen accountability. We rebuild trust in government and create a more inclusive society where every Fijian has opportunity to progress. We acknowledge that not every challenge can be resolved overnight. The work of rebuilding a nation requires patience, partnership, and perseverance. But what matters, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that this government has chosen to confront this challenge honestly, responsibly, rather than ignore them. It is with the same spirit of gratitude, humility, and responsibility that I rise today in support of the 26-27 national budget, appropriately themed a responsible budget for sustained future. At the outset, Mr. Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Honourable Minister of Finance, Commerce, Business Development, Honourable Siromi and his team from Finance for presenting a budget that reflects the government's commitment to responsible financial management, economic resilience, and investment in the future of our people. Mr. Speaker, the theme is more than a slogan. It reflects a government that is making responsible decisions today to secure a stronger tomorrow for every Fijian. A responsible budget is not only about managing figures on paper. It is about making choices that improve lives, strengthen our economy, and create opportunities for future generations. Budgets are often measured by numbers, billions of dollars allocated, percentage increase, revenue projections, and fiscal targets. But to ordinary Fijians, the true measure of a budget is much simpler. Mr. Speaker, sir, this budget responds to those questions. It is a budget that recognizes the economic growth must benefit all Fijians, not only those living in urban centers, but also for rural communities and our maritime islands, and for our informal settlements. It is a budget that places people at the center of national development. For the parents struggling to provide for their children, the question is simple. Will this budget create a better future for my family? For farmers in rural communities, will government support help them increase production and improve their livelihoods? For young people, will there be opportunities for jobs, hope for the future? For the elderly and vulnerable citizens, will they receive the support and protection they deserve? And for business, is government creating an environment where confidence, investment, and growth can flourish? A responsible budget, Mr. Speaker. Around the world, governments continue to grapple with rising inflation, geopolitical instability, and disruptions to global supply chain. Despite this challenge, government has chosen a balanced and responsible approach. Rather than shifting the burden to ordinary citizens through higher taxes, this budget protects households by maintaining VAT at 12% and retaining a zero-rated VAT on 22 essential items. At the same time, government has demonstrated leadership by reducing operational expenditure across ministries and implementing a 20% reduction in minister salaries. These are not symbolic measures. They demonstrate that government is prepared to share the burden while protecting families and business from unnecessary financial hardship. Although the budget projects a fiscal deficit of 7% of GDP, this government has maintained investment in essential services and social protection while exercising fiscal discipline. This is what responsible budget looks like. On Attorney General's portfolio, Mr. Speaker, sir, the AG's chambers is responsible to ensure that the government continues to operate within the framework of Constitution, uphold the rule of law, and provide sound legal advice across government. For the 2026 financial year, 26-27, the Office of Attorney General has been allocated 9.8 million. This is a 3 million increase. This investment reflects the growing demand for legal service across government. The allocation supports the core functions of the office, including providing legal advice to government ministries, departments, and public office, representing the state in legal proceedings before courts and tribunals, drafting, reviewing, and publishing legislation, supporting Fiji's participation in regional and international forums, administering important regulatory functions, including liquor licensing, film censorship, legal education, intellectual property matters, and maintaining Fiji's online legal database to ensure laws remain accessible to the public. The Attorney General's Office continues to experience increasing demand for legal advisory service across government. Last year, the Office prepared 705 legal opinions, conducted 39 independent legal assessments, and vetted 1,854 MOUs, MOAs, and cabinet papers. The current financial year, the Office has already prepared 282 legal opinions, completed 14 independent legal assessments, and vetted 1,709 MOUs, MOAs, and cabinet papers. The Office currently has 1,304 active litigation files covering a wide range of complex areas of law. This reflects the critical role of the Office plays in ensuring government decisions, contracts, and policies are legally robust and compliant with the law. Those responsible continue to be undertaken by a dedicated team of just 25 lawyers who work tirelessly to safeguard government's legal interest. Mr. Speaker, sir, a critical function of the Office of Attorney General is supporting the government legislative program by ensuring that policy decisions and reform priorities are developed into sound and effective laws. These responsibilities are undertaken by the legislative drafting section, a specialized team of 10 lawyers who work diligently behind the scenes to draft legislation, review amendments, and provide the legal foundation of government reforms brought before this Honourable House. We are grateful to the Mobile Partnership for providing a consultant legal drafter to support this section. Since taking office, the People's Coalition Government has demonstrated strong legislative momentum. Across all sittings of Parliament from 2023 to 2028, the government has tabled a total of 95 bills, of which 82 have been enacted into law. This represents an enactment rate of approximately 86%. The coalition government introduced expanded several policies and programs that is described as supporting social, cultural, institutional, and economic development of the Itoke community. Some of the key initiatives include re-establishing the strength of the GCC. The GCC was formally de-stabilized in 2012 by decree. In 2023, we enacted the Media Industry Development Repeal Act 2023. In 2024, we introduced the Inter-Tertiary Scholarship Loan Service Amendment 2024. The Fiji Truth and Reconciliation Commission was enacted in 2024. In 2026, Criminal Records Act, Tourism Act, Immigration, Passport, Citizenship, and Mahogany were enacted. More to follow in the months to come. Key achievements of the ministry, Mr. Speaker. This financial year has been one of the most significant in the office history. In a parliamentary deadlock, a constitutional amendment fell short by one vote in March 2025. To break the legal standstill, the Cabinet asked the Supreme Court for a definitive ruling. Senior Counsel Brad Walker, SC, was supported by Solicitor General's Office in this court application. After a week of intense hearing in August, the court delivered a landmark opinion at the end of the month. The judges affirmed that the 2013 Constitution remains the law of the land, but they threw a practical lifeline into the mix. They argued that the current rules of change were so impossibly strict that made the document virtually unamendable. By softening the rigid threshold, the court has now officially cleared the path of the country to have a direct say through the national referendum. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm minded of your ruling on the 5th of March in terms of the objections from the other side into the amendments in the suspension of the standing order. Your ruling was supported by the Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker, sir. Following the court ruling, the SG's office had drafted and tabled the national referendum bill for the government in December 2025, a historic first for Fiji, as it creates an actual rules for running a national vote under the current constitution, rather than rushing it through Parliament and send the bill to a special committee for a thorough review. This means every Fijians, including academics, community groups, get a formal chance to have their voice heard before any final decisions are made. The final debate and vote are expected sometimes soon, which will effectively set the stage for the general election currently penciled mid of this year and early 2027. Another proud achievement was Fiji's successful hosting of the 2026 Commonwealth Law Ministers meeting. 150 of top world legal minds attended the Commonwealth Law Ministers meeting, including attorney generals and justice ministers from 56 countries, flying all the way to 90 to listen to what we have to say. For the first time ever, this major meeting happened in the South Pacific and Fiji chaired it. The board and committees, Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me now to provide clarification on the allocation of utilized funds for the board committees under the Office of the Attorney General, namely the Central Liquor Board, Hotel Licensing Board, and the Board of Legal Education. For this financial year, the committees were allocated a sum of $125 to support its function and operational requirements. The Fiji Intellectual Property Office plays an important role in supporting innovation, creativity, economic development for protecting intellectual property rights in Fiji. For the new financial year, there were 759 new registrations, 1,067 endorsements, and 11 patents. For the Legal Aid Commission, Mr. Speaker, sir, a justice system that can only be truly effective when justice is accessible to everyone, regardless of their financial circumstances. It is within this context acknowledge the critical work of the Legal Aid Commission, an institution that continues to bridge gap between the justice system and the vulnerable members of society. This year, the Legal Aid Commission celebrates 80 years of dedicated service to the people of Fiji. For 3 decades, the Commission has played an essential role in supporting the administration of justice and strengthening the rule of law. For the financial year, the Commission was allocated $12.1 million. This is a 2.3% increase. Through this investment, the Legal Aid Commission has maintained a workforce of 122 lawyers who continue to provide service throughout Fiji, including rural and remote communities. The Commission managed approximately 24,308 active court matters, provided approximately 9,578 legal advice services, completed more than 16,000 attestations. Mr. Speaker, the Commission also continues to support vulnerable members of society, including the 853 child-related matters, a significant increase in domestic violence training order cases, with 715 cases recorded during the year compared to 387 cases in the previous final year. During the year, more than 9,300 students across 38 schools were reached through awareness programs, and more than 2,500 community members nationwide participated in legal awareness activities. The Commission's first handout procedure, which operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, also provided assistance to almost 5,000 individuals during the year. Mr. Speaker, sir, the work of Legal Aid Commission represents government's commitment that justice must not depend on wealth. It ensures that every Fijian has a fair opportunity to be heard and protected under the law. For Fiji law reform, Mr. Speaker, sir, laws must evolve alongside society. A legal framework must remain relevant, practical, responsive to changing social, economic, and technological realities. This is why the work of Fiji law reform is important in strengthening governance, ensuring that Fiji laws continue to serve the needs of our people. For the financial year, government allocated $678.04 to support the Commission's work in reviewing the modernizing Fiji's laws. Mr. Speaker, sir, the true value of these investments is reflected in the outcomes delivered. The Commission undertook extensive consultation with committees, provincial councils, government agencies, civil societies, private sector organizations, industry stakeholders, and land owners, ensuring that the voice of Fijians are considered in the law reform process. A significant achievement was the completion of the reviews of the Land Use Act 2010 and the State Land Act 1945, with a final report and draft bills and regulations submitted and subsequently approved by the Cabinet Subcommittee on Legislation. The Commission also progressed reviews on key legislation, including Online Safety Act 2018, Mining Act 1965, Quarries Act 1939, Legal Act 2006, Security Industries Act 2010, human trafficking-related laws and agricultural licenses and court rules. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Commission currently has 9 active law reform reviews underway for 2026-27, with further 6 reviews scheduled to commence from August 2026. It demonstrates government's continued commitment to strengthen Fiji's legal framework. The Commission's work has already resulted in tangible legislative outcomes, including the completion of review of 3 migration laws, which resulted in the 3 bills introduced and passed, as well as the passage of the Education Bill arising from the review of the Education Act. This achievement, Mr. Speaker, sir, demonstrates government's investment in law reform in delivering practical results, creating laws that are modern, effective, and reflective of the needs and aspirations of the people of Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir, public confidence in government is built upon the principle of integrity, transparency, and accountability. In the 2025-26 national budget, the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption was allocated 10.5 million. A strength of its anti-corruption operations was implemented in Strategic Plan 2025 to 2030. I also welcome the recent advertisement of the Judicial Service Commission for the position of FICAC Commissioner. This is an important step in ensuring the Commission continues to operate with strong, independent leadership in accordance with the law. It also reflects government's commitment to maintain the integrity of our institution, ensuring that key constitutional offices are filled through an open and transparent process. For the human rights, the protection of human rights remains fundamental in building an inclusive and sustainable Fiji. Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission continues to play an important role in promoting awareness, addressing discrimination, ensuring that the rights and dignity of all Fijians are protected. For the financial year, the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination requested an allocation of 6.5 million to resolve critical staffing shortages and upgrade its operational capacity. The Commission strengthens its operations through an internal structure, increasing its staff capacity from 11 to 16 officers, and establishing a permanent managerial position across key areas including legal and policy, corporate service, education, advocacy, complaints, investigation, and communication. Constitutional Review Commission and public participation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have listened carefully to the comments raised by Honorable Captain Lal, Honorable Sitiwei Korbisau, regarding the expenditure allocated to the Constitutional Review Commission. If I may respectfully say to the honourable members before questioning the value of the process, I encourage them to take time to read the regular updates published by the Constitutional Review Commission through its official platforms, including the stories, the photographs, and videos documenting the nationwide consultation. These records clearly demonstrate the extensive work undertaken by the Commission and, more importantly, the voices and concerns being raised directly by ordinary Fijians. Mr. Speaker, this was never intended to be a process confined to Suva or the comfort of conference rooms or urban centres. The Commission travelled across all 14 provinces, including our maritime island, rural communities, villages, settlements. We made a commitment to undertake a constitutional reform. The People's Coalition Government went to the people of Fiji with a clear promise that we would review the 2013 Constitution and provide Fiji the opportunity to have their voice heard, a document that governs them. One of the strongest and most consistent messages received during this constitution was the perception among many Fijians that 2013 Constitution came through a back door and was imposed upon them without genuine consultation and participation. Many told the Commission that they felt they were never given the opportunity to contribute to the Constitution that became the supreme law of their country. Mr. Speaker, this government would have chosen, despite what the opposition said, this government could have chosen the same approach. We could have sat behind closed doors, prepared amendment ourselves, and simply present to the people. We could have taken an easy political path. But what would democracy mean if that was the approach? Democracy is not simply about holding elections every 4 years. It is about respecting the people and their voices. It is about consultation. It is about ensuring citizens have a meaningful opportunity to participate in decisions that shape their future. Unlike the process in 2013, the government has chosen a different path. Meaningful democracy requires investment, consultation. It requires people, transport, logistics, public waste, and resources. Democracy is not free, but the cost of listening to people is far less than the cost of excluding the decisions that will affect the generations to come. Well, on the Ministry of Justice, having outlined the important investment being made by across our justice institutions, already articulated by the Assistant Minister, as the Ministry of Justice and its strategic priorities for 2026 to 27, a sustainable future for Fiji cannot be achieved through economic development alone, Mr. Speaker. It requires strong institutions, effective justice systems, accountable governance, and public confidence that laws are administered fairly, efficiently, and without fear or favor. The Ministry of Justice plays an important role in supporting Fiji's justice architecture. It supports key areas including justice sector reforms, legislative implementation, rehabilitation, initiative, and institutional strengthening, and programs that improve access to justice. Mr. Speaker, sir, if I can just conclude. The Fiji Correctional Service also plays a critical role in this regard. They are allocated 64.7, and it represents a different budget, and the approaches administered by the acting commissioner and the administrations is to ensure that true rehabilitation is actuated to the inmates and they are fully integrated to the community when they are released. And the ministry and the government is fully supportive of the positive work that is being done by the Fiji Correctional Services. Mr. Speaker, sir, given the time limitations, if we support the budget and the good governance and accountability and the utilization of the public resources, that will ensure that every Fijian enjoys from the programs of this government. I fully endorse the budget. Thank you.